Welcome to today's video. This is the video that you have all been waiting for. I cannot remember how many times I've seen people comment, even in my Japanese videos, being back here in Japan, saying, Sam, when are you going to make the video with a full breakdown of the Miata build, how much it cost, how you did it, and how we can do the same thing and replicate the same build. Today is that video. Let me go get the whiteboard though, finish off my Starbucks coffee, and then let's jump right into it. Now this video is a little bit difficult to make in the sense of there are so many things that I bought for the Miata that I'm trying to remember, and the best way to jog my memory is a whiteboard, and we're going to go through and I'm going to list everything that I can remember and the price. And I'm gonna even start looking up things on like my PayPal and credit card statements and stuff like that to make sure I get everything right. In some situations, obviously being a YouTuber, some things are greatly discounted or even sponsored. So in that situation, I'm gonna look up the retail price. I'm gonna try and make this like all retail pricing so that you guys have an idea of what it's real world going to cost you. You know, there's no point in me saying, oh, the whole Miata build only cost me $1,000 because, you know, I landed all these sponsorships or something like that. You know what I mean? That's no help to you guys. I want to make sure that you know real world pricing. So let's start off with the few ones that come to mind right away. First of all, we've got the car, right? And this came in at $700, right? The thing was supposed to have rod knock. It didn't. It was just a water belt getting caught on the pulley and making a ticking noise. As you guys remember, we did a little skid and the problem disappeared, and then we found out it was a belt.
Oh my god, you scared me!
Dude, it spins them really easily.
Dude, I don't hear the knock anymore, actually. Wait, hold on. No, seriously, I actually don't hear it.
Wait, if you just
Wait, rev it again. Dude, I don't hear the knock. Come out here and rev it by the throttle body.
You may not even need to buy a car if you're trying to replicate this same project. You may already have the car, which is great. Now, this price here is obviously going to vary a lot depending on the condition of the car. You know, if you're getting something with an engine that's running or one that's got a broken engine in it like I initially was, you gotta understand, like, this is a pretty fair price for a fairly clean shell with a blown up engine in it. Now, obviously that wasn't really the case. Well, kind of it was the case, because later when we stripped down the engine anyways, it was only a matter of a time, and that thing was a ticking time bomb. It would have blown up because someone had done a dodgy bearing repair on it. But yeah, this is kind of subject to whatever your situation is, right? But these days, you could be picking up a really nice clean Miata for roughly around like an NA Miata for $3,000. So this is my price that I paid, but obviously if you were to get a completely running good condition car, you're probably looking at about what I realized in the US is about $3,000, right? So we can kind of keep that out of the list because we're more so looking at like all the parts and stuff like that that we bought and the work that we had done to the car to get it to where it was. So let me just start by, I guess, let's go forged engine rebuild kit. So forged bottom end assembly. All right, I'm gonna go through now and start writing everything I can remember as best I can, and then we'll pick the camera back up.
Don't look? No. Why? Don't look?
3, 2, 1, look.
Yo! Yes! 4-1! Yes!
So I just spent the better part of the last hour and a half going through all of this and making sure I didn't forget anything. Now there are some things on this list that I made mistakes on and stuff like that that I haven't put on here, because as long as you know, plan and do everything correctly, you're not gonna have to pay for things twice, right?
Clutch? Oh yeah, that was clutch.
So the clutch is all installed and ready to go. That's the clutch. So a lot of people, actually a few comments were saying that they're like, why didn't you just put the ACT one on? And that's because I did a research on that black one that I bought, and that supposedly had more clamping force than this one. But I think there was something wrong with that listing because that thing's totally jumped.
Come on, dude, what just happened?
I lost my clutch.
Some guys were just bumping to some tunes, and I was like, yo, Sam, do a pull past these guys to no more clutch. Is it just soft?
It's gone, yeah.
Like it just goes to the floor?
Yeah, and it's not engaging or disengaging.
Come on, dude.
Yeah, so we're stuck in third. We just had a really gnarly red light, but we made it. We kept it rolling all the way until it was green.
Luckily, Florida's all straight, and to the shop is just straight roads.
Yeah, as long as we don't have to stop, we're good.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Oh, wait.
That sucks, dude. So I guess you're ordering that clutch once again.
Yeah.
One new clutch, and just like that, ready to go. Now, and there's obviously some things on here that are subject to change depending on your build and direction, as well as there are just some things that you won't need in certain kits that you can resell and get some money back, and obviously the parts on the car that you're replacing you can get money for, so you can recoup a lot of this. So, well, not a lot of it, but some, like maybe a little bit. So anyways, I'm gonna grab the camera now and go through the list bit by bit, and then we'll give you the total at the end. Now, it's kind of scary when I look at this, because it's like, wow, I spent a lot of money on that Miata. Now, obviously, like I said, this is all retail pricing. So in the grand scheme of things, as a YouTuber, you know, we do get a lot of discounts and sponsorships and things like that, which helps a lot. Anyways, let me just show you everything up close and let's talk about it. So we're going to start at the top of the list, and like I said before, we're going to ignore whatever price you pay for the car initially, because this is more about the build, how we got the 400 horsepower, how it was reliable, how it performed really, really well. So starting at the top, we've got our forged bottom end assembly, and that was mainly rods with Wastegate pistons, and that was also actually an 8.5 compression ratio piston set. So that was actually dropping the pistons a tiny bit in compression, and that came to $990. That was just the pistons and rods. We needed to add bearings. We got some King race bearings in there for $60, ARP head studs at $150, Kinetic head gasket at $100. So you can see there that our full forge build, if we just go, what are we looking at, like roughly $1,300 for just the full rotating assembly there. Then we've got the oil pump, which was a boundary one at $400. And then I want to start going through everything else here, and we're going to talk a little bit about like each item and why we needed to purchase that. So straight off, let's talk about the Coolant Reroute Kit. Super important on Miatas. It's pretty much a design flaw as to why the water enters the block at the front and then also exits at the front. It means that the two rear pistons and the rear of the engine is just going to be getting super hot and not being able to stay cool. So the reroute kit is a must. Super important to do this and invest in your car. That's $270. There are some other kits out there a bit more expensive. I would recommend the Flying Miata one or the Cobalt one, just because the Super Miata one that I had was just, it only works if you use like their radiator and all this other stuff to go with it. So if you're planning to just use all Super Miata stuff, you're good. But if you want to use like a different aftermarket radiator kit and stuff like that, don't go for the Super Miata one. So moving on to there, we've got the ECU. This is super important. The Mega Squirt was $600 used. I bought it used off Chris. Now these are brand new, roughly around $800. So, you know, you can still pick one up used for $600. They're everywhere online and on marketplace. So I'm confident that you guys can get a used one for $600. Now the turbo is the most important part of this build. You want a turbo that is perfectly matched to your engine. It's going to perform exactly the way you want it to. And I know that this is expensive at $1,800 retail, but trust me, your turbo is what's going to make the car. So we went with the GTX 2867R Gen 2 V-band with a 0.72 rear housing. Now you see the turbo kit under here is $1,850. Now this is not really accurate because, as you guys know, a bunch of the stuff on the kit didn't fit and broke. And I only really used the intercooler piping and what was left of the other parts at the end. I had to use it completely. You remember from the build, right? So technically you could get this kit from CX Racing with no turbo, no downpipe, just use the manifold and pay a fabricator to cut off the flange and V-band it, or get a fabricator to custom make you all that other stuff. If you can, I would recommend just getting from CX Racing the intercooler kit and piping. That's it. Everything else, get custom made. It'll end up saving you a lot of money. And I think I saw the intercooler and intercooler piping kit and whatnot from them for roughly around $600. So this is kind of like subject to change depending on your needs, right? This is the full turbo kit they sell, but you can, plus and minus some parts in there, resell them to drop that back down to roughly $600-700. Oil cooler kit, super important to keep the engine cool, $350. Coilovers, I went with the BCDS series. I reckon a really good pair of coilovers is super important. They retail for $1,300. Changes just entirely how the car feels, and you don't want to cheap out on this. Just like your turbo, there are certain things on this list you just do not want to cheap out on. Now, fabrication. This one's a big oomph. I spent about $2,600 on fabrication, and that is purely because of all the issues I had with this kit here. And obviously, there are ways that we could have avoided all of that. So this is also subject to change as well. Especially if you're a fabricator yourself, you can do a lot of this stuff for free. So these two were probably the most expensive things that I really didn't need to spend money on if I did a bunch of research, had experience, and knew what I was getting into. Fuel injectors, 1000cc fuel injector clinic, $470. Fuel pump, I got a 300 liter per hour drop-in Works pump. It was $200. Hydro handbrake, $200 from GK Tech. Steering wheel and hub assembly from NRG. So that's a hub, quick release, and a steering wheel, all for $350. Wheels, the Koenig freeformed flowed wheels. I think that's what they were. They retail for $800 for a set of 4. The tires, the Valino Grievers, $400 for a set of 4. This is actually super important, your tire choice. If you're going with this same build, you're going to be making 400 horsepower. You do not want tires that are going to instantly grip and break everything in your driveline. So pick a really good tire combo that's easy to get spinning, but once it's spinning, it has grip. So it breaks traction easy. And I really can't recommend the Valino Grievers enough for that. They are a bit expensive. They last way longer than anything out there. And they have tons of grip once they're rotating. Exhaust, $480 for a full exhaust kit that replaced the catalytic converter with just a resonator from Injectors Racing. Engine mounts, you need reinforced engine mounts. This is super important. I went the Megan Racing ones and they worked really well in my application, $180. Complete engine seal kit. And the timing kits here. So anything like brand new OEM seals and all that kind of stuff, just go to Treasure Coast Miata. They have everything there. It's genuine OEM. They ship internationally, worldwide. I can't recommend them enough. They literally helped me out so much. But complete engine OEM seal kit, $174. Timing kit, which is all Gates Racing stuff and OEM parts, $162. These things are super important when you build and put your engine back together. Now, radiator and fans, I went with the Mishimoto route, and it was about $460 for both. That's a high performance radiator and the 2 fans. Wideband gauge from AEM, $230. Boost gauge from AEM, $170. Sensors for your ECU. This is super important. IAT sensor, flex fuel sensor, boost solenoid. All these things you need to be able to control your engine and what it's doing. $250 on all those sensors. Wastegate. This is super important too. I know this is expensive, but you want a wastegate that is going to be able to control the boost levels accurately and correctly and not going to give you any problems. Don't buy cheap wastegates. It's like if you have nearly a $2,000 turbo and you throw on a $30 wastegate from eBay and that blows up you're going to be very upset. So I highly recommend Turbo Smart. The Turbo Smart 45 millimeter gate or 40 mil, I can't remember, but it was $350. From there, bodywork. This also kind of ties back in with the fabrication and the turbo kit because I only needed a bunch of bodywork because this didn't fit. So this is subject to change. Now, obviously, this also includes the engine bay respray in there, but I spent $1,500 on bodywork. Engine builders. This is a big one that ties into the forged bottom end assembly, but for everything, engine being balanced, reconditioning the head was practically brand new, all new valve stem seals, everything. Like the whole thing was stripped down, it looked brand new. You guys remember in the videos how amazing it looked. Plus the full rotating assembly being assembled and balanced came at $1,200. I was super impressed with the engine builders I found, Keeners, and they looked after me, did everything. $1,200, could not complain. So just so you guys are aware, a fully forged bottom end, assembled, ready for you to drop the head on and everything, $1,200 plus $1,300 up there, you're looking at, what is that, $2,500. You have a fully forged engine, like assembled. Well, you've got to put the head on and stuff like that, but that's awesome. So the next most, I only put here the price of the final clutch that actually worked with my build, which was the Flying Miata Level 2 Flywheel Happy Meal Combo Kit, $956. The other next important thing, this is something that if you have a 1.8, I don't think you worry about this on a 1.8. I think it's just the 1.6s that need a variable TPS, but this is 260, straight bolt-on affair from Flying Miata. Really recommend it. And then Miscellaneous Misc. This is for like engine oils, fluids, random hoses that you have to replace, any little lines, like any little bolts and all that kind of stuff that adds up very, very quickly that you think is just small amounts and doesn't really add up to anything. It actually does. Miscellaneous here for $2,000 is pretty accurate for all the random kind of things you're going to end up needing and buying that you didn't think of and all that kind of stuff, and lines and like, you know, turbo oil lines, water lines, like little fittings here and there. You guys know what I'm talking about. Even just a bag of zip ties and all that kind of stuff. Like this is pretty much going to cover that. So that's pretty much everything and what I used parts wise for getting and building the Miata to 400 horsepower. Now, obviously, like I did change diffs and stuff like that, but like I said, that kind of comes under what's already in your car to begin with. I had to change alternators and stuff, but, you know, I'm just assuming that your engine and all the accessory parts are all good, like AC compressors and all that kind of stuff is all fine. So that's not really including any failed parts that may happen on your car as it arrives. So take that in with a grain of salt. So it's now time to talk about the total. What does all of this add up to? And I have to say, when I look at the total, it's kind of mind-blowing that there's that amount of money in this list. But at the same time, it's also not, because you got to realize like car builds really do add up super quick. And it's not just car builds, like anything, any kind of project you do, it's super recommended that you go and start listing everything and do your research, figure out everything you need and price it all up. Because otherwise, like, and I made this mistake when I was younger, and I know people still make this mistake all the time, because when I go to car meets and stuff, there's always someone young there saying, you know, oh, I'm gonna 2JZ swap my car. I looked up, you know, an engine package with a transmission. It's only $5,000, and then I'm done. I've got $5,000 in the bank. I just bought the engine. Pulls the engine out of their car. They can't even put the thing in because they didn't get engine mounts, and you know, they're missing all these parts, or they do get the engine mounts, it's sitting in there, the car doesn't get finished for the next 5 years, the guy gives up on it, sells it on Marketplace. Like, that happens all the time because this is never really done. Plan for your builds, list everything out, and then you'll always have enough motivation to finish everything, because if you have the finance to support your project, you'll be able to get it done in a quick manner, which then means that, you know, you're always kind of like pumped and motivated to get it done. If it sits there and you got no money and you're just looking at it all the time, that's not a good thing. Like, it's just gonna end up you not wanting to finish it. Anyways, enough ranting aside, let's talk about the total. The total of everything on this board, which is retail pricing, came to $21,562, which is a big wow. Now, like I said, retail pricing, and if you're doing a build of this scale, you are gonna get discounts. There's no doubt on that. If you call up a parts shop and you say, hey, I need all of this, what's the best price you can do for me? They're probably gonna give you 10 to 15% off. That's a given. So you're gonna save probably right off the bat, like, let's just say $2,000. Now, if you've got a friend, which 9 times out of 10, if you're in the car community, you know someone's friend that works at a parts store, is a mechanic or anything like that. You're generally close friends with people like that. They're gonna get you probably upwards of 20% off at cost price, which is gonna save you nearly 5 grand on this build. That's gonna bring it from 21K down to 16. So it's definitely something that I know is not gonna be realistically the price that everyone's gonna pay, but I would plan for spending around 21 grand. That's just a good idea. And that's a lot of money to spend on a Miata. So if dollar per smile and all that kind of stuff, and if you really like the car, if that seems like a good deal to you, then do it. Now, in my instance, I just love cars. I love experimenting and building and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I loved every moment of it. Now, obviously in my situation, I did not spend anywhere near this amount of money on the build. Being a YouTuber means you get sponsorships, means you get parts at crazy discounted prices and stuff like that. That's kind of like a given, I guess, and I'm sure that you guys understand that. But this is just how much money would be involved if any normal person who just went in and paid retail pricing spent on all this kind of stuff. Another big thing is this does not include tuning, finding someone who's going to tune your car. Now, in the States, roughly what I understand is a tune is about $600, depending on where you go, $600 to $1,000. So if you're doing 2 tunes, a break-in tune, you're doing 93 and E85 tune, be prepared to spend about $2,000 on that, just because you need it, you know? So I think that's pretty straightforward. That's everything. How much does it cost to build a 400 horsepower Miata? That's it. Happy building, guys. I hope this sheds some light on some stuff. Like, I'm kind of like, wow. But at the same time, like, when things are like, you know, when you're grinding and pumping content out and just having fun, honestly, I would not take it back in the slightest. I had so much fun. I learned so much. And I feel like I became such a better, like, mechanic, even though I wouldn't call myself a mechanic, like, just someone that understands cars way more and stuff, and understands how to build cars as well, like the whole process and planning and all of this. I learned so much, and I hope you guys did too. It's kind of weird to see it all, like, written out there like that. And one other thing that you guys need to take into account is don't plan to sell your car and get all of this money back. You won't. Let's be honest, if I was to resell, like if that Miata was sold today, you would be super lucky to get 7 grand for it. 7, 8 grand. There's no way you'd get 10 plus for that thing. Like, it's just, it doesn't matter what you have bolted into it, it's still at the end of the day a Miata. Yes, the answer is always Miata, but that doesn't mean like you're gonna get 20, 30 grand back on a Miata that you've just put all that money in to make that speed and that kind of stuff, right? In some situations when it comes to race teams and drag racing teams and stuff, cars that are already built, ready to go, tested and proven, those situations are very different. That's when those cars sell for big money, like a couple $100 grand and stuff like that. And they're still at a loss. Like, they're not selling it for everything they put into it, no way whatsoever. So, you know, take that as well with a grain of salt. Another thing that I didn't really mention is I did all the work myself. So imagine if you were paying a mechanic workshop to do all of this work for you, if you're not, you know, self-inclined to be able to do that kind of work. Like, easily add another 10, 20 grand to this build. You could easily have a 40 grand, like, Miata. Like, I don't think people understand how much labor is involved in this kind of builds. But anyways, I hope this gave you, like, shedded some light on car builds, what goes into them, how much goes into them, and all that kind of stuff, as well as gives you a good idea on how pricing kind of works, and obviously like a bit of an insight into YouTubing and that side of things as well. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Smash that like button, write us a comment, and I will see you all in tomorrow's video. Peace out. Jamata.